You're allowed to headbang along to that thing. Al's done a body check. Did I say body check then? That sounded weird. Interesting intro. Right. So we are back on the Imposters podcast. Al's here is a supervisory role at the moment. Potentially we'll jump in if he can be bothered nowadays. Podcast is a bit beneath him now. He's a supervisor. He's just doing Overwatch. Standard practice from him. He's a big YouTuber again now, so he's got no time for me. Anyway, on today, we have Mark Thomas here. And do you want to run a quick little bio about where you've come from before we get into where we're going in the future?
Yeah. Greetings. Thanks. Thanks for...
Oh, I've still got the first music going. Hang on. Yeah, it's a rock show podcast, this one.
Rock show.
Al's give me... That's a tick already. I'm telling me off.
Been standing on this planet for 52 years now, although I didn't stand immediately after birth, of course. I took a fair while to walk.
Like the standard amount of time, or?
Sorry?
Standard amount of time for walking, or are we
I think so.
Struggling from
start?
I
think so, yeah. Yeah, nothing unusual, I don't think, which is good. Standard upbringing for the most part.
That might be a question we bring in, actually, just like how long did it take you to walk? Just to get a real baseline on all our guests in future might be a thing.
Yeah, well, is there any science as to what happens if it takes you a lot longer? Do they become better people, worse people?
I don't know. Maybe they're just imposters as babies. It's just like, I wasn't ready for walking. People judged me and stuff. Sorry. Anyway, go back to it.
I say standard upbringing, but I suppose it wasn't really overly standard. What happens to a lot of other people? I lost my mum to cancer when I was 8. Obviously, you learn a fair bit about life when those type of things happen. But went through school, didn't like school. Standard.
Pretty much every intro to a Zero Limits podcast. And didn't like school, didn't do well. It wasted my time.
It's actually interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah.
How, I mean, you talk about Zero Limits. I mean, you look at where Matty is now and what he's doing. I mean, I wouldn't say he's the highest of educated people, as in schooling education, but life education. He's got bucket loads, and he's obviously he's flying along at the moment. So
I also wouldn't say anything to Matty's face. He's 6'8" or whatever he is. He's Gojira, as he says.
For a distance.
Yeah.
Mechanic for a few years after school, which was good, and then into policing, where I graduated in '96, Victoria Police Academy. First 6.5 years or so, healthy. Went to a suicide on the 8th of April 2003, which changed the course of my life. And I've said it a few times when I've been presenting, and like Back to the Future, you know, when Biff gets the sports book.
Yeah.
Back, and
the almanac or whatever it is. Yeah.
And it creates a separate timeline.
Yep.
Yeah, so that day for me created a different timeline of my life. So,
have you seen the movie Sliding Doors?
Yes.
Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah, same thing.
It's I reckon you could do that movie about 85 times.
Yeah.
And with every different decision you made in your lifetime, just see what timeline it could have been.
Yeah. What would happen if you chose?
There's another one, Family Man with Nicolas Cage.
Haven't seen that.
You seen that? That's I mean, I don't know if you're a Nick Cage fan, but yeah, so he's the same, but one of them, he doesn't get married, doesn't marry the chick, and the other one, he just turns into this mad sports promoter. He's just living the best life. He's pimping it up, lives in a penthouse and all that sort of stuff, and then they switch over. So it's a bit different. It's not really sliding doors. Something happens. It's makes a wish or whatever, and they change spots, and then he gets to experience being a pimp versus being a family man. But yeah, it's interesting. A tiny little decision like, I missed that train, or I did this or I did that, can make a massive difference. Yeah, obviously suicide's a little bit larger.
Yeah, but even then, you know, like I was, you know, I don't look into it too much, but like I was rostered on that day, that shift, that van.
Didn't even need to take that call,
like, there is so many different variables that could have kept me away from that scene. But then if I don't go to that scene, was it, although, you know, I was about to say, do I go to another scene, and that mentally hurts me, but I've been to any number of suicides and fatal crashes and drug overdoses and things like that. And I'd seen plenty of trauma, and I was always fine. But it was something about this day.
Maybe God's plan.
God's plan.
Sorry, we've been talking religion after we had talked about Joel Jamal's one.
Yeah.
We might get into that later. We'll see how we go.
Insanely interesting.
Yeah.
So my mental health literacy was, fair to say, low at best. Didn't do anything about it. long story short, 10 years later, end up in hospital, diagnosed PTSD, depression, anxiety, and 11 years on from that now, functioning quite well with limitations. There's some things I can't do, or there's some things I won't do. That's not many. There's some things that I've got to, like really mentally prepare, and like if we're going for a night out somewhere, I'll have to mentally prepare for that night, and I take along a couple little sort of fidgety type toys that I can occupy myself with if anxiety starts going high. So
Is that sort of like the cheap version of a service dog?
yes,
Yeah. Like fidget spinners.
yeah,
There you
lot
go.
cheaper.
There's What are we wasting all our money on these dogs? It's just like I think the difference with the dogs is that they like it'd be different if a fidget spinner like just started vibrating in your pocket when it knew that you were setting up. You know what wouldn't be actually? Let's talk offline. This could be money. But I'm just thinking like because like my watch tells me what my stress levels are.
Yeah.
But it's like it's me going, oh, geez, I tell you what, I'm feeling a bit worked up. And I have a look and it's like, I've been on stress for three hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. That'd be interesting if you can link that up. If some dude does this and makes a fortune, I'm going to be pissed. But it'd be interesting if you could have a fidget spinner that just vibrates based off a watch connection that tells you
it could
your
be
stress.
done.
Yeah. Anyway, you're welcome, whoever makes the money out of that.
And out of that, started a charity, co-founded it with Rob and Ben, Code 9 Foundation, where we concentrate our efforts on helping people helping members and critically their partners and kids, their families. We focus on quite heavily as well. So to help them through their mental health journeys where we can.
You said you got diagnosed with PTSD.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, tell me to shut up if you don't want to talk about it. But when you speak to somebody and then they come out and they're like, right, here I am, I'm in my white coat and I've got a folder out, and they're like, this is what you have. Like, how does that conversation go, and how does that come through in your head, and how do you deal with, like, is it a relief? Is it a I don't believe you? Is it a nah, that's not me?
So for me, it actually answered questions.
Yep.
So the Sunday night, so my symptoms were off the charts, is in February 2013. I'm still not picking up on something's not going right. Although I did book in to see a psych. So I'm thinking I went to I'll just backtrack a day or two from hospital. So I went between crime and Intel Covert Support where I'm at, had a health and wellbeing day, ironically. And one of our, Joe Gartis, one of the psychs is up there, really good bloke, Joe, and he had this slide, PTSD, depression, anxiety and suicide. And he said, don't worry if you're ticking a box or two, because generally everyone does. I'm sitting in the front row. I was literally ticking every box. And with that...
Did you shout out bingo? Or?
Oh, I thought about it. I thought, I'm winning.
Yeah.
And then I developed this feeling in my chest, and I now know that was anxiety, just having an anxiety attack. It's a relative one. So I actually left and booked in to see, rang Wellbeing Services, booked in to see a psych, which was the following Monday. And then I got through the next few days. And I had this idea that I've just got to get through to Monday at 3:00. I'll have my psych session and I'll be fine. I'm about 250 psych sessions deep now. So my initial estimate of 1 was just a little bit out. Oh, geez, I'd be every part of 250. And it got to Sunday. I was working at the cricket voluntary duties. Cricket, favourite sport, played it since I could basically walk. Love it, still do. I'm working on the ground, so really, air quotes, hardly working.
Yeah.
Getting paid to watch Australia and the West Indies.
Well, I think you're actually paid to watch the crowd, but...
Well, yes.
It is always funny watching the cops that are watching the game.
Yeah. So I'm watching the game, watching everyone. Cricket's reasonably easy to work. And then I caught myself thinking, I go, I don't want to be here. And then I sort of gone, I don't want to be here at the cricket, or I don't want to be here on this earth. And I couldn't tell the difference. I didn't know. I couldn't answer that question. And I like going, okay, well, things are obviously quite serious now.
Yeah.
The healthier part of my brain, which was very little part of it at that stage, just get through to tomorrow, seeing the psych, we'll be right. So I go home and I got home, I don't know, 11:40. In bed at 11:55 because I remember looking at the clock. At 11:57, I have what my first treating psychiatrist said, a catastrophic loss of self, which is basically a full-blown high-end anxiety attack. I'm emotional. I'm just shaking. And my first sign of anxiety is my body heats up. And, if you're going to have anxiety, it's not actually a bad one to have, because I'll be walking along sometimes and I start to heat up and I go, whoa, what's going on here? So then I'll actually stop and I'll work out what's making me anxious.
Like, how far do you have to get into that before you realise it? Like, are you in your jocks or?
Pretty much.
It's not just
it's a bit
my
strange
jumper's off.
walking down Burke Street and you're in your box shorts.
Yeah, it's anxiety, guys. Just leave me alone.
Right.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
But then I made a really good decision, and I made the good decision because my normal human brain, the way I kind of explained it, just shut down. But my policing brain kicked in. Got me phone, woke my wife up, said ring welfare. I spoke other words which I don't remember, and basically ended up in hospital that night. So, and then a couple of nights in Footscray, short stay unit, and then Geelong Clinic, and as sitting before this professor and a professor of psychiatry and a separate psychiatrist, and I didn't disrespect the psych community. I just didn't know much about them, and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. But when I got down there, I haven't slept, and I thought it'd be a really good decision. My brother drove me from Footscray to Geelong to have a can of Red Bull on the way.
Yeah.
Like
You got to stay up because you're going to have to talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
I was tired.
Want to be on your A game, when you're talking to the
So I am peaking.
Yep.
And I'm telling him, my story's like Pulp Fiction. I'm telling a bit of this one, a bit of that one, a bit of this, back to this one. I'm all over the joint. And then I stop. And within about 15 minutes, he had me, my personality, what happened, everything picked apart to a T. And I've gone, all right, respect. If you can follow that, you've done well.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, I said, so what's the go? And he goes, yeah, you got post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. And I've gone, okay, that actually answers a lot of questions. But interestingly, the PTSD and the anxiety didn't really bother me. Okay, perhaps a relief what you're saying, but the depression was like, whoa, hang on, just pump the brakes on that one a little bit. And I don't know why. I can really only put that down to self-stigmatisation.
I was going to say, it's interesting that you stigmatised 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
You're like, look, I'll wear the other 2, but
that one I'm not so sure of.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole journey since, the 11 years since, depression has been the hardest. So, like, if I have an anxiety attack, yes, they're not pleasant, obviously, but I know I'm going to calm myself down. It's going to suck for a fair while. I know I can't do this now because that's going to be a trigger. But you know what? I'm going to go home because that's safety. I'm going to listen to some music. I'm going to eat some fruit and yogurt, which is my favourite food. I'm going to be tired, but I'm going to be all right. But when a depression wave comes in, is it going to last a day, 2 days, a week, a month? You just sort of, it never lasts a month for me now. But
it also sounds like it doesn't feel like you've got any control over that. Like, even the way you're speaking about it now, it sounds like you're like, well, now I'm just a passenger in my own life.
Yeah, spot on. Like I do lots of things to try and not have depression waves come in, but it's like a couple of different terminologies. I live with it. I don't suffer from it. I don't like the word suffer, so I live with it. I coexist with my diagnoses, whatever the word is.
Diagnoses?
That might be it.
Oh.
Can't say that word. Not the smartest unit.
Yeah. Can you say phenomenon?
No.
I was wondering if it's going to
That is one of the words. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I got nothing. My daughter just walks past me at times and says, "Oh yeah, good on you."
Yeah. Oh, look, to be fair, that was the first time I've said it straight up. So I'm pretty happy that it came out that well. It's interesting because I've spoken to DVA and stuff about different things. Like, have you put in your claims for injuries and things? And I never did. I was like, well, I was fine at the time. They're like, yeah, but that's how there we go. Degenerative things work is they get worse over time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, okay, I'll go and get my knees and my back and stuff looked at and get some scans done and things. And then she's like, oh, I also want you to go and speak to a psych about, and there was like 4 different anxiety disorders and depression and stuff like that. And I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't have them unless I'm diagnosed, like whereas I can't hide knees, you can't hide backs and do whatever. And people are like, yeah, but wouldn't you rather know? And I was like, look, with cancer I would because I want to try and fix it. Or, if I had some other issue that we could fix, then I'd be like that. But I'm just like, nah, I'd rather just not. And that doesn't mean I do have them. But the thing is, I get to say that I don't, I don't have them if I haven't spoken to someone about it.
Yeah.
But then I've had other friends who went and spoke to psychs about stuff because they were having issues, and they thought, oh, I'm going to get told I've got depression. They're just going to put me on Valium or whatever. And they went there and they're like, no, you've got ADHD.
Yeah.
And you get upset about things because you process stuff differently, and that changed everything for them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see when you get a diagnosis, you're stressing about it, and you'd rather just pretend it doesn't happen. But then if you do get diagnosed, it helps you change the way you live life so that you can better yourself. I'm still not going, but
you can do things, that, with medication. And like I was unmedicated for about 2 years. I was actually really surprised. So shortly thereafter, after being diagnosed, I was asked, now let's talk medication. And I'm like, let's not.
Yeah.
And then he kind of looked at me and I said, well, I want to see how far I can take this first before I need an assist.
Yep.
Oh, all right, cool. And they were like, oh, okay. And that was it. There was no more, oh, no, you have to have this and you have to have that.
I think as cops, it's a bit funny too because the amount of mental health ones you go to and the people don't want to take their meds.
Yep.
And I feel for those people because they're like, I feel numb. They're like, I would rather have my issue than feel this numb and feel like nothing matters anymore. And I've always felt such a like it's painful when you rock up and the clinicians turn up. They're like, nah, just jab them, give them the thing, and do whatever else it is, and just put them back into homeostasis where they're just back in the I don't know, in the matrix, just cool. How they're doing, just ignoring life again. And that it's writing their life off. They lose on average, what is it, 10 years or something that they say that the medication does. But do they benefit during the years that they're here, or are they just numb and then ticking through? Like, I don't know. I'm always scared of meds, and then how much does it take away from you? Because how many times have cops gone somewhere and they're like, oh, they just need to go back on their meds? Because we're not clinicians. We don't know any better. And our job's just like, yep, go take them to the hospital. They'll get meds and it will be fine. And it's like I've always seen that their autonomy disappears. So I was like, psychs have always scared me because they can take away your autonomy of life.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of benefits where they can help you go. But it's a risky ball game, I find, to get involved in.
Yeah, and I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Because like I was recovering for about 2 years and then I plateaued. Saw the side. Let's give it a go. The first batch I tried just utterly destroyed me in 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, I think I need to get off this stuff. This is no good. And this is, what fits one doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
Different ones. And I could only eat green grapes. Everything else.
Afterwards?
Like when I was, after a couple of days, I was just sitting in bed, just wigging out massive. And I stopped taking it that morning.
Yeah.
But the thought of any other food, I couldn't stomach the thought of having a slice of toast. But green grapes, give me. So wife is just bringing a couple of bowls of green grapes. I mean, go figure. I got no idea.
3 days of just eating grapes, your insides are not having a good time. That's not going well.
So got that out of the system, onto a different type between the SSRIs, SSNIs, different.
Sorry, what are they?
So the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, something.
Yep.
So the SSRI is for one part of the brain. SSNI, I think it is for a different part of the brains, depending what receptor needs the bridge fixed with the medication. That's how the bridge. That creates a bridge. That's what I was because the bridge is broken.
So serotonin being one of the happy drugs,
Yeah.
and it's your body's inability to uptake that, so you can't feel happiness anymore.
Yeah.
But it corrects that.
So the second one, cool, this is all right, and the moods were still pretty low, so we upped that, and I was on that for probably 4 or 5 years, and then I just sort of sitting there, I'm going, geez, it'd be nice to feel an emotion at some stage.
Yeah.
So, but
It's like I'm not sad, but I'm nothing else either.
I don't. It's good that you don't get the lows.
Yep.
But it's bad you don't get the highs.
Yep.
So you just, as you said before, you're stuck in the matrix.
Yep.
One of my favourite movies.
Yeah. Oh, how good is it?
Yeah. So I changed psychs and I said, look, this is, I want to get off this. I just want to see where I'm at. If I need medication, I need it. But I need to know whether I need it or am I just rolling along and So we halved the dosage, didn't really feel a difference. Okay, that's cool. So stayed on half dose for about 6 months. And then actually it was this time 2 years ago. I didn't time it. People said, you timed it. So I said to my boss, I'm getting off meds altogether, so I'm just going to take a week off because I just need to sit and just I need to do things and I just don't want to have work. And Mick Bennett, my boss at that stage, just the king, yeah, mate, no worries. It just so happened the Tokyo Olympics started that week.
Yeah, okay, that's where.
Yeah, so people say, you timed it. No, I genuinely didn't time it. So I got off and...
But a lot of them you can't just come off, though. You've got to wean off.
Yeah, so I went, that half dose.
Okay.
So I went from... I can't remember. It's funny, though, with dosages because some dosages are like 100 mil, but then others it's 10 mil for that tablet. So I half dosed, didn't feel anything, didn't really change anything. So when I stopped, I was having brain zaps. Oh, they're bizarre. Like you're sitting there, like I was sitting there on the couch one night and I just jumped. And the wife goes, well, that was a big one. It's like a little electric bolt going through your head. Oh.
So I had Michael Raymond on last week, and he was talking about he didn't call them brain zaps, but he was talking about the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So he went overseas and did ayahuasca, and he's done mushrooms and that sort of stuff.
I'd love to give that a go.
I'll get you onto him
when I'm retired.
Yeah, well, obviously you wouldn't do it in the police. Although I don't know that it's illegal to do it because he goes over to South America. You obviously can't do it here.
Yeah,
but yeah. I find that interesting too, that like people can go to Amsterdam, do whatever they want, and then come back here and you're like, oh, I didn't do it here, so it's legal.
Yeah.
Laws are funny sometimes. But so he was talking about the brains. I can't remember what he called them, but yeah, he was like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like you'd be sitting there. He goes, it wasn't painful. He goes, but it was almost like your body reacted to being tased, but you didn't get or it wasn't actually that. It was like just from synapses in your brain firing randomly and stuff. Yeah, that's weird.
And it's... they don't hurt at all, but it makes you jump and jolt a little bit.
Oh, and you certainly wouldn't be driving or anything.
No, no. Just sitting at home. And then, like for about 6 months, I was really good. The mood became really good. And I was driving I was going to Bunnings or something, and I had to pull over because I was in tears of happiness because I felt, air quotes, normal.
Yeah.
I thought, shit, this is what it feels like to be happy. Like, and I hadn't felt that for, like, to that level. I couldn't even remember the last time I had this euphoric feeling. And I'm like, this is awesome. I was in tears. So I had to pull over. It's a bit hard to drive when you're crying.
I like that you were like, I pulled over and cried because I felt normal.
Yeah.
That ain't normal.
Yeah. And then about 6 months into that, I went downhill and crashed hard. Yep. So then back to the psych, I said, So I tried to, I was exercising, diet, meditation, mindfulness. I was doing everything right.
Yep.
But I still went downhill.
Yep.
All right, so I need them. Cool. So back, and I got onto a different type again because I said, I don't want the numb feeling. It sucks. I can handle a bit more lower lows, but as long as I can feel some highs, understanding that they're not going to be the low and the high. Jumped onto them, job's right. started off on half dosage just to ease back into it. Got on to the full dosage. I mean, the half dosage was hard because the pills are an egg shape. How do you cut an egg shape in half?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
he
true.
said, and these ones you actually do, you just cut them in half.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then I sat on that for about another 2 years, and then I just started the year. I've gone, said to me psych, you know what? Let's give this another go. He actually suggested to me. So I see me psych once every 6 months now, which is really cool. Better than once a day at the start.
Yeah.
So, and he actually said, I can see you off meds again. The way you're talking, the way you're handling yourself. I said, all right, cool, let's give it a roll. And some people go, why would you want to do that? And, because if you go downhill again, well, at least I know. I've got to continually keep learning about me and do I still need. So I've been off for...
And you're like, because you don't understand how good that drive to Bunnings was last time.
Yeah. I want that drive to Bunnings to be that good again. So I'm 4 months in now. So it's usually 3 months that the brain has broken down what was the remnants of the medication, and that's when it starts breaking down again. But of course, I'm different. I was fine at 3 months last time. It was 6 months last time. So I'm going all right at the moment, but I've still got...
You get the zaps off this one as well?
No zaps. I was a little bit disappointed, actually. I was kind of sitting there going, give me some of this zapping again. 'Cause it's such a bizarre, strange feeling. But let's roll with it.
Yeah. I miss the zaps. Yeah, right. That's an interesting story. Right. So you've gone through that, and it's so overwhelmingly being diagnosed was benefit for you.
It was a benefit, absolute benefit, because then I know.
Yep.
All right, this is what I've got. And then the next step was, well, what do we do?
Yep.
And that's what I just said, well, what happens now?
Yep.
Because if I was lying in hospital with a broken leg, I know you're going to put a cast on it.
Yep.
For 4 weeks, and then I'm going, that's easy. You can map that stuff out, but what do I do?
Well, the rehab, yeah.
Yeah, what's the rehab look like?
Cool. So then what's made you go from that to I'm going to tell my story to everybody?
That was, I reckon, remnants out of mum dying.
Right.
Because when I was growing up, I had mates come up to me and ask me, like their grandmother or their grandfather had died, and they're going, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And I was able to sit down and talk with them and say, well, this is what I do. This is what I did. And I'll go see mum in the cemetery and I'll have a chat to her. I'll actively talk to her, just tell her what's going on, which I do that now. I talk to her. I say good morning to her. I say good night to her, tell her how the day was. That to me keeps the connection.
Yep.
And for a lot of years, that didn't happen. That's just me working out what works for me now. So learning from helping the mates through their grief and it just helped them that little bit. And I thought, that's really cool. So I learnt that early that I've had this large negative, but I can use that to help people. All right, that's a good thing. So
that was just in-person chats?
Yeah, just in-person chats, just sitting down. And back in the day, we might have been forward driving out back Anglesey or something, and they might bring it up, or there's no mobile phones back in those days. Or, just around at mates' joints, having a few beers, a few rums, whatever. The conversation just comes up. Generally not around everyone. It'll be when it's just two people, a mate and me.
Well, that's like like when you're in the job and you're at the muster room and everyone's talking smack and they're giving each other shit, and then as soon as you get in the van and it's just the two of you, you're like, right, what's going on, mate?
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
It's like the more grief you give out in the van, out in the station, in the muster room, and then it's then afterwards you're like, right, that's public persona. What do we got going on?
What's actually going on?
Yeah.
What's happening? So, and for me, it was an experience. It still is an experience now, but having gone through it, it's like, well, people need to know what this is like, because for some reason, I didn't care who knew. Tell anyone.
Is that because God had your back?
It's such an interesting conversation.
I'm into converting people now as a non-believer and just converting other people.
To be clear, I'm a non-believer too, but I do find it entirely fascinating.
Yep.
So, but like I messaged, of course the family knew. I messaged sort of my inner circle and just say, look, crew, this is going on. I'm off the reservation for a while. I'll be back. Don't worry.
You're like, in a good way.
In a good way.
You're not going to get a phone call from someone else saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's like there was a night in hospital where I bottomed out, and I felt I have never been able to put into words adequately. So I said that very slow.
Yeah.
Because I can't say that word quickly.
No, the brain zaps.
I know why people take their lives.
Yeah.
Because I've had such a level of mental pain that it's just not sustainable to live. You just couldn't do it with that amount of pain. So, but suicide was never an option for me because I know what it's like to grow up without a parent.
Yep.
So again, people go, geez, is that a positive? Hell yeah, it's a positive, but it's quite a...
That's why God taught you. I'll jump off that.
It's that, that negative turned into a positive. I was asked one day, if your mum didn't die, what happens? I don't know. I'm more on the side of I'd still be here, but those early days, like I was having like rampant suicidal thoughts early on, first few months.
I didn't want to bring it up again, but it's funny when you're saying you're like when before we were like, nah, I'm not into religion because what was God teaching me by my mum getting passed away, and now talking to you, it's just like it's one of those things. You're like, oh, everything happens for a reason. That's why you're still here because your mum sacrificed herself so you could still be here now when you went through that. Yeah,
and that you could have a person. If we had a person sitting here in amongst us two non-believers that is a full believer, it's a really compelling.
That'd be
100%.
That's what happened. Yeah,
and I get it. I understand it. I don't believe it.
I'm going to get Andy Cullen down here, and he's going to convert you. It's funny. I can see people. I'm like, he's going to get converted. But Andy's like, what about you, mate? Get out of my face.
No.
Yeah. So, at which point though? Like, what was your first podcast? Was it? It wasn't Zero Limits, was it?
No. I don't know which one was first. Oh, actually,
did you do public speaking first or podcast first?
Public speaking.
Okay.
So I was hit up pretty early from a work unit to come and talk as when I was returning to work. So, and like I was more than happy to tell my story because people need to learn from my mistake that I was uneducated, very naive to mental health. I missed all these signs and symptoms. And if you don't want to pay any attention to it, this is what's going to happen.
But had you done any public speaking before that?
Just a work unit about when I was at the Joint Counter-Terrorism team.
Yeah, but just about work stuff.
About work stuff, but nothing personal, no.
Yeah. So how did you feel when people have asked you to tell your story? Like, how are you like, A, this is very vulnerable, a topic that I'm speaking about. B, it's me that I'm talking about. And then why am I talking about it? Like, surely there's other people to have a chat about.
Yeah. I was keen.
Yeah.
I was happy to do it. The anxiety was large, you could say.
Lucky you were medicated.
It was very large, but got me way through it. I had a Valium in my pocket, but I only break them in case of emergency.
Yeah,
because they are magical.
Yep.
I can see why people I've seized Valium off people before when they didn't have a prescription and they got reasonably upset with me.
Yep.
And I now know why, because they are brilliant.
Mm.
And I've got to be very careful, and listeners, be very careful because they are very addictive.
Well, it's like heroin. It's a terrible drug.
Yeah.
But anyone who uses it's like, I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah.
Like it is my life now.
Yeah.
It's
the overriding factor for me, it's like I wanted to do it and I was keen to do it and I still like doing it, but it's that...
You're talking public speaking? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, you still talking about Valium?
That's a good
like,
clarification.
Geez, I love it.
Very, very good clarification. I haven't had Valium for years.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But the public speaking and even podcasts and things like that, anything to do with me, yes, it raises anxiety. it takes, I call it brain juice, mental energy.
Yep.
It's brain juice. It drains that. But I'm also acutely aware that I've been through a pretty big mental health event. I've got an ability to talk about it, and a lot of people don't have that ability for whatever reason. And
As in some of them aren't here anymore.
Yes, exactly.
So that's the other thing.
So, I had a bloke come up to me last time 2 forums ago with outside the locker room to a work group from Southern Metro, Victoria Police, and he said, mate, you saved me life. And like I'm sitting there, I don't know what to say. Because traditionally I just push away compliments. I don't do compliments.
Yep.
I've become very I've changed my attitude with that though. But so if someone comes up and says thanks, I have to thank them because they've come up to me to say that. So I've got to acknowledge that.
Yeah. And being the person that's been up to someone and said, mate, love what you're doing. And then like if they just like, yeah, all right, thanks, mate. Like he's like, oh, well, yeah. Like I'm trying to do something nice. Why is he being like that?
Yeah.
But then, and I mean, we've only got 17 listeners, but having people come up or like I get a text message saying, hey, mate, I really love that one you did about that. That was really good.
Yeah.
And it's like I just used to ignore it at the start.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's rude. And then I'm sure this bloke's just like, well, hang on a minute. Like I'll put myself out there. Like we usually just talk smack and now I've been nice to you and you just disappear.
Yep.
And you're like, yeah, I'll try and accept that better, which is funny because I've given out compliments before and then being like, why they get weird about it? And it's like, well, now I understand. But it's it's if you do go up to somebody and say something nice to them and they act funny, it's like they're probably not in a place that they're accepting compliments about them and their lifestyle, etc. at the time. So don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Just in future.
And it's spot on. And like I'm great at giving compliments. Yeah, I'll throw them out left, right, and centre. But as far as taking them, so yeah, now it's an automatic thought that I have is that I've got to take that time to thank that person. So, but
I think that's a real imposter thing too. Like if someone gives you a compliment about being good at something that you don't feel that you're like, look, I'm trying, I hope I'm doing well or whatever else it is. And then if somebody compliments you, which is basically telling you you are good at that thing now, if you still don't believe that you're good at it, the compliment almost gets, like, I don't know, like when people started saying that, I almost thought they were being facetious at the start when they'd say it, and I'd be like, yeah, righto, thanks for taking the piss, mate, or whatever. Yeah. But that's me. That's not them. That's my problem.
Yeah.
So it's funny when you try and do something new, and then somebody says, no, you're actually doing well, and you're like, nah. But that's a personal thing. So for you to just actively go, yep, I'm gonna accept that, and then reciprocate and say thanks for coming out, like going out of your way to say something nice, because that takes guts anyway to make an interaction like that.
Well, with that, what you said then takes guts. Like people come up and go, it's really brave that you tell your story, and I say, look, I appreciate your comment, thank you, but I actually don't see it like that. But you saying that reinforces to me that I am doing the right thing, and then I'll talk about the imposter syndrome. And go, every time I'm presenting, and even for the first probably 15 minutes here, my brain's telling me, dude, such bullshit. Like, just stop. Put the headphones down. Yep. Say, thanks, gents. Have a nice day and go home, because this is such boring bullshit.
Well, Al's been sleeping, so.
Yeah. But because you get people that come up to you and say, thank you for that, I got something out of that, I really enjoyed that, that's really important, those types of things, then the healthy part of my brain can override that imposter and go, no, well, actually there are people getting something out of it here. And I've only ever aimed to, like I've spoken to groups of, a single people, I've spoken to groups of 5 people, up to 500 people in a room. It's only ever one person that I want to influence them to take their own mental health seriously. And if I can change the attitude of one person, well, then that one person may not have taken his life down the track, his or her life down the track.
Yeah. And then you've gone. So, how did Zero Limits happen?
I reached out to Matty.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. I listened to a fair few of episodes.
Yeah.
And again, like I'll start listening to a podcast, and if someone's speaking really hoity-toity and, no, I'm off.
Well, he's usually C-bombs within the first 3 minutes.
Yeah. But because that's like, I'm year 11 tech school educated.
Yeah.
I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not completely dumb, but, like I want to, I'm happy to speak to my people, my type of people. And, like I just thought, what, I'm going to reach out to him and see if he wants to have a chat. And he rang me, we had a bit of a chat. He goes, yeah, cool. So we just teed it up and had a chat.
I love that Matty's almost become like the gospel of all things like first responders and veterans. Like everyone goes to Matty to tell a story now. Yeah. Which is like hats off to him for starting that and then sticking to it. Like he puts in some hours. Yeah. Like when we went and saw him on Newcastle, like he saw us in the morning, we had breakfast, we did our thing. Like we spoke to him for a couple of hours. I spoke to him for 3 hours. And then we walked outside to put our stuff in the car and then there's another dude waiting. Yeah. And then he did that and then he had like another 2 and he's like, I've got to do this because now I'm going to Europe. And like it was all very, he's on the whole time, that bloke, which is why obviously he gets to where he is. But I think, who was it? Is it Chris Williams, that other bloke? He does it. He has got a podcast, but he was saying that the beauty of people doing podcasts is your ability to take stuff from, like some subject matter expert who may speak in professor speak. Yes. But your ability to translate that into something that layman will understand. It's like if the top 10% are talking this and no one else can understand them, then they're not really that influential. But if you can get someone, I think that's what Joe Rogan does so well. Yeah. He gets these people on and he's like, right, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to translate this into what everyone can say. Yeah.
And reaching out to Matty was like, we spoke about before, like I come up earlier on this year, I just thought, right, the evolution of me. Yep. Like I've got to continue to evolve. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at the moment, all things being equal, but I can't sit back. So, and even though I spoke to Matty before that, but it was listening to other episodes he's done is, just have a crack, just do it. And I thought, okay. And you look at the guest Matty has.
Tell me about it.
And then I actually typed out the email, like as if he's going to want to speak to me. Like what a fucking spud I am compared to these other blokes.
Mate, mine was worse. I was driving up there and Al's telling me I'm a spud. He's like, mate, have you seen who he's interviewed? He's like, and then we're both like, he must be out of people.
Put me down the bottom of the list. Give me I'm on the bench, mate. I'm on the bench. So if someone gets injured, you can call me up.
Yeah, if you need me, just call a sub. I'll jump in.
Yeah. And I sort of thought, you know what, I've got to move on from this. It is like one thing my old man said to me, I took off to play cricket in England when I was 21. And then when I got back, he said the mark that went away was not the mark that come back. Like I actually grew up a bit over there, a fair bit. But he said one thing that you've always been able to do is take yourself out of your comfort zone. And like Dad's the king. And I'm just, okay, I've got to continue to do those type of things. So send, fuck it, send. And then, buried amongst the 4,000 emails that he'd get every day. He got back a couple of days later or something. But and then it all happened and like, cool, I'll have a chat. And I'm sitting back going, well, that's pretty cool. So, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm challenging me inner imposter to, and obviously what I've been doing, what I've done and how I present myself, I'm going all right.
Another thing I find funny with, like, imagine being Matty, where people talk about him like this. Yeah. Like if people were talking, like if I heard a podcast where people are like, oh, I was on Verso's podcast. I mean, I could narrow it down because it's only 12 people, but it's, but like, they're like, oh, I can't believe, I was on there, like it was awkward. Did they do this? And like a mate of mine who came on and we talked to him about running and stuff. And it took ages to try and get him on. He's like, oh, I don't have anything to talk about. And I'm like, mate, you run 150 Ks. Yeah. That's not something average people do. But even then he was just like, oh yeah, but the other people you've had on, I'm like, mate, they're all just mates of ours. Like he knows half of them. And it's just like, oh yeah, but they spoke so well. And so it's just funny hearing that because we're at such a low level. And then you look at Matty and he's basically the Bible for Australian Yeah, that. And then we just had lunch with him, and it's just normal. Like it's not a big deal. He's he's a humble dude. When realistically he has every right not to be.
Yeah.
Like the people he speaks to, he's a giant of a man. Like he's super successful in multiple different parts.
Yeah.
But he's just a dude. And I wonder if it makes him feel awkward having people speak about him, like this, or if he's just because he's real humble.
Because he's just such a down to earth.
Yeah.
And even chatting to him, I did it over Zoom with him, and he's just kicking back in his chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually forgot we were actually recording.
Yeah, he's good like that.
And we're just sitting there just yapping away.
He would have been a great interviewer with
that's right.
in the cops and stuff. I reckon he would have done real well.
Just chilled.
Yeah.
So, but I think what makes it, what you just said then, he's high level with this stuff now is because you look at his background, he wasn't a high achiever when he was younger. But you get people that just operate on different levels. Like from the word go, they're insanely intelligent. They're insanely athletically gifted. They put a bit of work in. They're always operating up really high. And, then there's people like us who sort of, I know for me, sitting in this sort of middle area. And there are people that don't operate at very low levels, and that's them. But that's life. That's what makes humans humans. We're all different. So to see him being so successful is really cool because he's had to work for it. And as you keep saying, just give it a crack. And that's very much in my brain at the moment. It's just give things a crack.
I messaged him and I was like, oh mate, we're doing our 30th episode and stuff. We just ring around and people, you good for it? He's like, yeah, no drama. He takes my phone call. He's in Spain.
Yeah.
He's in a different time zone. And he's like, yeah, no drama. Happy to have you on. Full well he's flat out doing what he's doing at the moment.
Yep.
But takes a phone call, does whatever. Doesn't have to. Doesn't need to. It's not even a PA that you speak to, it's Matt.
Yeah.
I'll stop fangirling over Matt. You know what's funny? Al fangirled over him on the way up. I fangirled over him on the way back. It was awkward. So you started a foundation, Code 9 Foundation.
Yeah.
What led to how'd you get into that? Because you were doing that before you went to Maddie.
Yes. So
Sorry, I'll just jump in. If people do want to listen to Mark's thing, it's episode 161. So get around it. He'll tell his life story on there.
When I was in hospital, I felt intensely alone. And I'm thinking no one could possibly know what I'm going through, which is obviously complete and utter bullshit.
Especially when you're in a ward.
Yeah.
People going through the same thing.
I was in with civilians, which was a little bit different.
Yep.
And it was interesting. I walked past a bloke one day, so I was pretty much involuntary, so I wasn't allowed to leave.
Yep.
And I'd just walk around.
That's weird because I have grabbed a lot of involuntary patients before. I thought they are allowed to leave.
Well, yeah.
All right, we'll move on.
I've been in the same boat.
Yeah.
So I just walk around inside, just walking. And this bloke said to me one day, he's sitting there in a trench coat and sunny's on indoors. You do you. And he said, how are you? I said, I'm good. He goes, well, what are you doing in here then?
Oh. And you're like, this guy's smarter than me.
Fair point, mate. Fair point.
He's like,
and it
actually
made me realise that comment really hit home.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I actually thought...
I love that you judge this bloke. You're like, yeah, mate. Yeah, no, I'm good. He's like, no, you're not.
No, you wouldn't just some random who's in there with me.
Yeah, he's like, look at me. You're in here.
Yeah. Have a look at yourself, champ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, don't tell me you're judging me, mate.
Understood. At that stage, tomorrow was black. I couldn't see the next day. But I was in this area at this stage where I don't want to live, but I can't take my life. So again, we're in the matrix, in this funky little area. So again, the policing part of my brain, the healthy part goes, we need to project forward so you can map out a few years in front of you. Because tomorrow is black, and it is the most bizarre feeling.
I find it interesting that you say the healthy part of your brain is the police part of your brain, when you probably just mean the logical, unemotional part of it.
Yes.
It's Yeah, so like if you take, you're like, look, I know what I'm feeling, but if I take all the emotions out of it and I'm just looking at this thing with a rational thought, train of thought, and that is very police, because you go to a job and people are screaming or they're crying or they're doing whatever else it is, and you're like, a lot of that is emotional manipulation that they're trying to get a result out of you.
Yep.
So you're just looking at the bare facts. That's probably a positive to come from policing.
Yeah.
Even though people would say stuff like, oh, right, so you just take emotion out of it. You're like, well, yes, because the law doesn't have emotion.
Yes.
And I need to look at facts and what's happened.
And you have to.
But
you can't bring emotion into it.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you can also then use that skill in your own life. So it's not all bad being a cop.
It's not all bad.
Yeah.
So that's explained really well. I've always said the police brain, but that's spot on. So, okay, I've got to plan out my lad's cricket training, daughter, whether she wants to do dancing or netball or whatever, certain different things. Work I didn't touch because I didn't want to think about work, but I sort of thought once I get back to work full time, which was, again, I didn't even, bit of a bluff really, I'm going to start a support group for coppers. So when they're sitting in hospital feeling alone, we can walk in with our little secret handshake club and go, don't worry, dude, you're good, because we've walked in your shoes. This is us. You're part of the club. It's pretty special.
Welcome.
Welcome.
How you going, mate?
Like
yeah, I'm all right.
not.
No, you're not.
No, you're not much chop at all, champ. Let me tell you.
That's how the intro goes. How you doing, mate? Good. Nah, you're not ready. You're not ready for this chat because you ain't.
No. And then it's just to show people that they're not alone. And that's it, like our taglines, you're never alone. So people, that just fed off my extreme loneliness in hospital.
Is there a psych ward for like first responders now, or is it?
Yeah.
Because veterans have Ward 17.
So, yeah, we're there as well.
Oh, right, okay.
Yep. So Ward 17 is, civilians can actually get into Ward 17 as well. Very, very rare though. So it's mostly, it was built for military, but they also take first responders now. Melbourne Clinic has a course, but as far as a pure first responder / military ward, 17 is the only one that I know of. So it's been looked at in other areas, because Geelong Clinic for me was pretty good. It's a private clinic. Actually, a bloke I played cricket with like 30 years prior, he turned up. What are you doing in here?
He's like, I'm doing really well.
Yeah, we're both going great.
Yeah, and he was wearing a trench coat and sunnies.
But like when I was down there, I was just in my room. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I'm not there to make friends. So, but if you go to the Melbourne Clinic, you're in with a much larger population. You can come across other people. You don't really want to. So, I mean, it'd be awesome to have our own wing, like plus Ward 17, plus something way out east, something down Geelong Way, something up Bendigo Way, something like that. Because it's when you're amongst your own, and especially with post-traumatic stress, when your hypervigilance is off the charts, like if you're going into a public clinic and someone you charged is in there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the chances of it happening, maybe not. But when you're
I go to Durham at gym, I see people I've worked with all the time.
Yeah. So it would be great to have our own facility, that's for sure.
Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. I'll get done for what is it, defamatory stuff or whatever it is. It's like they know where their money comes from.
Their job's right.
Yeah. So it's interesting because there's little things like when you say like stuff triggers you, and like even just that word now a lot of the time triggers people. When you say, oh, what triggers you, and then some people just don't talk to me like that.
Yeah.
But just little things I find with military, for example, you always would just like touch someone's foot to see if they're awake, so you don't get belted. But that's not a normal thing.
Yeah.
Like when you're like, hey mate, how you going? And then all of a sudden they just jump up and fight you, and you're like, well, that's not a normal response, but it's a thing that you would understand coming from different things. And just like just raising your voice or doing whatever, or just distance and all those sorts of things that can be things that you're not overly in control of. But or just I find just little things like when you go to a cafe, and if you're with someone who's not doing as well, like I'll always let them sit first.
Yeah.
And if they don't care where they sit, then I face the doors. Yeah. You know, like, it's like who needs it? Who needs it more? It's like, but I also find that if it is somebody else that I sit with and they sit and they're looking at the door the whole time, I'm like, well, I feel okay because someone else has got the door covered. Not that I'm getting ambushed, and I've been out of the job for like almost 3 years now, but
it's still a very live thought.
Yeah.
And like we'll go out. My wife, she knows. She just makes a beeline for the corner, and then there you go. She grabs a seat with the back to the door, so I can see the door.
Yeah, my boss at Invictus does that now too. Because it was funny. I sat down and she's like, "Why do you get awkward?" And I'm like, just whatever. Yeah. She's like, "What?" She's like, "Oh, is this one of those door things?" Because her brother is also a veteran. Yeah. And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "It gets real weird." I'm like, "I don't think anything's going to happen at this cafe in the middle of Glen Waverley." I'm like, "But," it's like, I know there's 2 exits down there. I know where the toilets are, and there's a dude down the back there that I'm a little bit shady about.
Yeah, keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Tell you what would be funny if you went out and took about a dozen of us that are all hyper vigilant to a cafe and just see the punch on to get the best position.
Yeah. They'd be like, I'm pulling rank on it. What? There's no rank here.
It's interesting. Some people go, they'll call it out. So, you're not overly comfortable there, are you? And I said, no, how do you know? He said, because you look at me for about a nanosecond. Yeah, anxiety's high and I'm stripping off.
Yeah.
But your head, you keep turning. You're looking at any noise, your head snaps around.
Yeah.
The door opens. You want to see who it is.
I
don't even know I'm doing that.
Yeah. So I did an interview with Arvi, which I don't know if that'll get you in trouble, but I did an interview with Arvi, and I had people message not about what was said, but they were just like, "Mate, you need to chill." I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Mate, you're obviously," he's talking to you in front of a crowd and you are scanning 24/7. Yeah. And like, I never bothered watching it. And then after people said that, I was like, "Oh, I'm on at the." Yeah. It's like everybody that's walking past, I'm assuming, is about to shank me or whatever else it is. And he's got my back to the road and all sorts of stuff. And just little things that it meant nothing to him. But just looking at it then, I was just like, I can't even look at him when I'm talking to him. I'm literally looking at everything that walks past.
Everything else.
Yeah.
And these are the behaviours that we sort of don't really know about. And like when I'm going really well and I'm in a really good spot, I'm not overly concerned with my behaviours because I'm in a good spot.
Yeah.
But when I've dropped down a little bit, I'm just so consciously aware of what behaviours am I displaying, what am I doing, because I've got to be aware, because there's some stuff was I doing that? I didn't know what you're just saying then.
Like I find when you're going for the police, I had to do a psych test and stuff, and but coming from army, it's like I went in, I'm like, right, don't sit there, don't be too defensive. And it's like, all right, you got to answer that. If you hear the same question they've asked in a different way, they're trying to see if you're going to lie about it and whatever else. They're trying to catch you out. Yeah. Like, that's not a normal psych interview.
No.
Like, I'm going in there trying to trick this psych. Yeah. If I'm automatically trying to trick a psych into doing stuff, but it's like, I know they ask a question, and if you react and you change your body language, they're paying attention to that and doing whatever else it is. So instead, you've got to, like it's almost like you're trying to beat a lie detector test.
Yeah.
Where they're asking you questions and you're like, well, I know what you're trying to get out here.
Yeah.
And so they're like, why do you take so long to answer a question? You're like, because I know you have the ability to take my job away from me.
Yeah.
So I don't see you as, you're not on my side.
Yeah.
Like you are the enemy.
I'm going to formulate this.
Yeah. And I think that on its own is probably a heads up for the psych, where they're like, did extremely well.
Yeah.
It's like almost too well. But yeah. It's psychs is a very interesting thing. Like they if you're willing to get their help, I reckon they're amazing.
Oh, and my current one, Chris, is a ripper. He was referred to me by Tristan, former defence, and I walked in, and like within sort of the first sort of 30, 40 seconds, he's already dropped 3 or 4 F-bombs. We're going to get along.
It's funny though. Like you get psychs that read the room when they get first responders, and I think they actively will try and swear. Yeah. Almost. Like sometimes
just put us at ease.
Yeah, they do it and you're like, nah, that's not really you, but I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for trying. But there's interesting stuff that way. So the Code 9 thing is like how does that work? How many of you are there?
So the way it all started, so before June 2015, I started the what was called the Blue Initiative.
Okay.
Was the first thing it was called. And we caught up once a month at Anzac House in the city, And we just, we had a private Facebook group, and like the rules were no negativity, no bashing organisations, nothing like that. It's all positive, etc., which has caused a bit of grief over the years.
But I mean, there is a reason you make those rules.
Yeah,
we had the same. So we had when we were doing a walk with Al, and we were like, we're in the car park, and dudes would just be ranting.
Yeah,
and you'd be like, right, as soon as we step off, we're nothing else.
Yeah,
and the awkward part about it was we were like, oh, what are you interested in? And dudes would be like, oh, I like four-wheel driving, I like fishing, I like this, I like that. But you'd get some dudes, and they'd be like, they'd just look at you, and you're like, man, you need to get a hobby.
Yeah.
You now have homework.
Got to do something.
Yep. By the time you come back tomorrow, you need to.
Bad lazy brains.
Yeah.
No good. Bad lands. Yep. Bad things happen.
Yeah.
And then Rob come along with Jimmy, Rob Atkins. Jimmy, the assistance dog. And so he messaged me during the week, and he sent me a video where he got presented with the dog in Canberra and or in Sydney, and cool. So he rolled up, and I knew his face because Rob was he was on all the posters when we went from revolvers to semi-autos.
Oh, yeah.
So he was one of the trainers. 3 hours, just smashed him with questions about the dog.
Mm.
And then he'd come to the next meet, yep, no worries. And what we also used to do, I'd get along at like a guest speaker, and I got a mate who's a really good personal trainer. Didn't do a 2-week Weet-Bix course and calls himself a personal trainer, knows body structures, muscle groups, etc. So I said, mate, can you come along? There's probably maybe 10, 15 of us, and just talk about the importance of body movement. He said, I'll one-up you. I'll bring me mate Rob. All right, mate, cool. So his mate Rob Jackson, great bloke. He was then one of the high-performance coaches at Melbourne Footy Club. So Rob Jackson comes along, and he's really good and talking to us about sugar. Cool.
And how good it is.
Oh, yeah. It's really good for you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. You've just destroyed everything I've ever thought about.
Yeah.
All the good food.
Yeah.
Good food.
Yeah, but they make sugar-free monsters now, so it's not all bad.
Coke Zero.
Yeah.
Coke no sugar, whatever it's called. And then, so Rob Atkins with Jimmy is a Melbourne supporter, but he hasn't been to the MCG for about a decade. So Rob Jackson goes, I'll tee up a game. All right, cool. So it was Melbourne versus Gold Coast. This is when Melbourne, before they come good, so there's only going to be like 20,000 there.
Yeah. And it was ski season, so
there
was only 15 people.
Sitting there at the cafe with their cheese and bickies.
Yeah.
So we roll up at the MCG, myself, Ben and Rob, 3 coppers. Both of those, I don't know whether you'll have to retire at that time or not, or off on work cover. But the MCC knew we were coming. Rob had set it all up. So we've got directed, so up to the second level, great seats, no worries. And I'm sitting there, and all 3 of us are quite anxious. I'm not quite down to jocks yet, but I'm starting to warm up. Ben's sitting there, and he's twiddling his thumbs, which is what he does when he's doing.
That's his fidget spinner before they came out.
Yeah. And then I hear Rob take this really sharp inwards breath through his nose, which I'd worked out that's his trigger sign. And I was about to sort of put my hand on his shoulder and just, it's all right, mate, safe. And I thought, not my job. And I looked down, and Jimmy's already come out from the seat, and he's just looking at Rob. And then I get my phone out because Jimmy has got his own Facebook page.
Yep.
So I'll take a couple of photos, which is entirely weird if one of your mates is wigging out and you're taking photos of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem right.
No, it's not that weird for me. I do it all the time.
So then Jimmy comes out and puts his paws on Rob's knees, and then he sticks his head. He's just staring at Rob like really close, and then just gets up, puts paws around his head, and starts licking his face and basically headbutting him.
Yeah.
As Rob says, when you got 35 kilos of lab headbutting you, it's pretty hard to stay wigging out.
Yeah.
Goes inside, Jimmy settles down. I'm just sitting there, I'm just shaking my head going, that is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So the next month or shortly thereafter, we're sitting around the 3 of us and go, well, how about we register as a charity and we'll raise funds for these dogs?
Yep.
And, somehow 3 crayon-eating knucklehead coppers managed to start a charity. So, but much to Rob's credit, I mean, there's a bit of work to go in. I'm probably jumping forward a little bit here, though, but Rob's credit said, we sponsor assistance dogs, which is great, but that's one member and one family. There's probably more we can do. So, and that's hence, we've expanded. So I gave a talk to the Lions Club at Geelong during the week, and I said, if there's something we can do, this is our criteria, that puts a smile on a first responder family face that's struggling through this, well, then that's our criteria.
So you all, they're not just police. You're all first responders?
Yeah, so at the start there was a couple of civilians that come on. They were registered, yes, but they resigned not long later. So there's a paramedic, couple of paramedics, a 000 Victoria operator. She was on for a fair while. A couple more civilians now, which is good because it brings, especially, there's 2 people who come on board now, Tan and Sin. Both of them like marketing and fundraising, things like that. Like with those 2, like fundraising, we haven't done too bad, but marketing, been a copper for 28 years. How do you market stuff? Like I just do these, there's a Facebook post, that sounds all right, okay, post. So to have that.
Right. Also coming from a job where you're not really supposed to have any sort of social media, or it's just it does nothing but bad for you in your career. Yeah, it's funny to then try and put yourself out there.
Trying to do those things. So, and then like Christy, Rob's wife, she's a graphic designer, builds websites. So she built our website, and then sort of talking about earlier, like we had a rebrand, and she's just designed all this stuff where you look at. Teal is the colour for post-traumatic stress, and then you got the ribbons. Everyone's got a ribbon, like breast cancer's got a pink ribbon and white for family violence and things like that. So she turned a teal ribbon into a 9, and you can see the ribbon, you can see the 9.
Yep.
And then she's put a 9 inside a speech bubble, which I looked at, I've gone, oh, that's a cool shape. She goes, yeah, it's a speech bubble. Oh, yeah, because we want people to talk.
Genius.
Ah, yeah.
I'm going to have a look at that
again. I'm sitting over
I just saw a 9.
Yeah. But, and so out of that, and then Sin gets that, and she goes, there's so much marketable stuff out of this new. So we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And I'm just sitting there going, all right, girls, you do you, because you are operating at different levels than me. Yep. You are much higher. I trust you both. Go forth.
And I'm fangirling over Maddie again, but I think Maddie's made it almost okay for first responders and stuff to actually be their own people again, and not be ashamed of their identity and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of tall poppy syndrome where anyone who has a voice now just gets cut down by other people, but like he's not about that.
Yeah,
and I think it's been really good for Australian first responders and army and stuff to have people be able to actually go out and have a chat about stuff and be like, hey, look. Sure, I'm not and the fact that he has like average people on like us as opposed to all these mad SAS boys.
Yeah.
But I think that's been really good for people to just like tell their story and just have a place where you're like, hey, it is okay to have done some random stuff in your life.
Yeah.
Because I found, so with, every time I catch up with people who weren't in the job or army or whatever it is, then they'll be an accountant all year and then they're like, oh, mate, what have you been up to? Like when I used to play footy every weekend, it was like, oh, what happened last weekend? You were working, or oh, you're on night shift. What happened? Footy training was never about, it was never any posties going, geez, I'll tell you what, I delivered this package the other day. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Or, or they're like, oh, I did these spreadsheets, killed it. Like they never did that.
Yeah.
But because all of our stories are just standard stories to each of us, it's funny if you tell a story online, they're like, man, everyone's got that story.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, everyone in our life does. But everyone else is just like, that's interesting. I'd like to see it. Yeah, whereas Maddie comes across that, even though Maddie's doing much more stuff than we're doing, but he still seems interested, and it gives you a place to like go, you know what, I am actually doing some stuff that's pretty cool without judgment. So I think that's been really good.
But he also started on episode 1.
I should go back.
And episode 2 when he's built it up. So,
and I dare say he would have gone through a lot of the same stuff that we're talking about now, 100%. But he's just like, well, now I'm at almost 200, so.
Yeah.
You can go F yourself.
So my wife loves crime podcasts.
Oh, God.
I can't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
And I said to her the other week, I said, what's the obsession with you people with crime?
Women are mad for crime podcasts. They're like, oh, and, this dude was dismembered and he was this and that, rah, rah, rah. And you're like, yeah, that's not great.
No. And she goes, but you get to live this. the vast majority of the community do not get to do what you do. That's
right.
why we want to know. And she goes, that's why police shows are so many on TV, because people want to sort of vicariously live through that because they know they can't do it. And I've gone, oh, fair play.
And you're like, but also that's why I'm in Ward 17.
Yeah, that's why I am Coco Bananas.
Yeah. I might cut it away there and we'll come back and do another part.
Cool.
All right. Cheers for your time so far, mate.
Pleasure.
Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just do it. Simple.
Yesterday you said